Hey, guys, how are you today? It is Alison from Alison Answers, and I'm so excited to have Dave Albin on the show. He worked with Tony Robbins for 19 years, being the head of the Firewalkers. So I'm so excited to hear his backstory and all the different things he's going to share with us. He has a very hard and difficult backstory that just drives right into triumph, which we're all about. Remember, we're here because we want to see how any life can be turned around and you can find your greatness. So I'm going to read to you about Dave Albin. Dave Albin, he tried alcohol at the age of 12, and by the time he was 14 years old, he was experimenting with hard drugs. Grossly addicted to drugs and alcohol, he joined AA some 20 years later in June 1988. This is when Dave was introduced to the personal development industry. He attended a seminar with Tony Robbins in 1995, where he did his first Firewalk. Dave went on to work for Tony Robbins for just shy of 20 years as Tony's Firewalk captain. It's so cool. I can't wait to hear about this. Dave retired from the Anthony Robbins companies in 2014, shortly after Google hired him to put on an event for them. Firewalk Productions, LLC, was born in 2014. Dave has done gigs for NASA, Heineken, the Entrepreneurs Organization, Remax, Chick-fil-A, Prove It, Google, NC Chiropractic Association, Wayne Dyer, T. Harv Eker, who I love, Crisp Video, Tony Robbins, as we know, and many more. Dave currently lives in the Appalachian Mountains in Ashe County, North Carolina, and I'm so looking forward to hearing more about Dave. And without any further ado, we're going to welcome him into our room for the show. I did forget to mention that Dave is the #1 Firewalk instructor in America. Firewalking is a 1,000-year-old rite of passage ritual where you literally walk across hot burning coals. Having worked for Tony Robbins for the 19 years that he had, and starting Firewalk Productions in 2014, he has firewalked hundreds of thousands of people, which is incredible. He and Tony set a world record in London in 2005, walking over 12,300 people. His success has a scary and violent past. On June 8th, 1988, he put a gun to his head to stop the excruciating pain from both drug and alcohol addiction. 2023 will mark 35 years of sobriety, and we just want to showcase that. As you know, Lager Counseling Services, we're also drug and alcohol counselors. You know that we're proponents against suicide, and it's just really, I'm really looking forward to hear the hope that Dave is going to bring. Dave is a really, a man who has proven that we can all overcome, even in the darkest hour. So I just wanted to add that to his bio and his introduction, because he deserves it. Hey, guys, how are you today? It is Alison from Alison Answers and Lager Counseling Services. As you heard, because I did the bio prior to having Dave on, this is Dave Albin. And this man, as you know, is very interesting. So I discussed, Dave, about you being the head of a Firewalk, I don't even know how to put it, adventures, as it says behind you. But what I would love for you to share is your backstory first, like how you ended up getting to this beautiful place in your life.
Well, the smart aleck answer to that, Alison, is I took that left-hand turn at Albuquerque. Well, it started way back, right? It was 2 months before I was born. My biological father, who had been injured somehow in Korea, he was a pilot. And so to save his life, they put a plate in his head. Well, it also took his life, because 2 months before I was born, he constantly talked to my biological mother about the pain, and he didn't know how much longer he could take it. And one day he told my mom that he was going to the grocery store, and she never saw or heard from him again. So mom gave birth to another son. So now she's got 3. The other 2 were my half brothers from a different father. And we were all living in a 1-bedroom apartment in Hollywood, California. We were right across the street from Hollywood High School. So it was my mom, my grandmother, my cousin, and my two other brothers, half brothers. Well, when I was 5, mom was working as a server at the Roosevelt Hotel there in Hollywood, and she just couldn't make it. She was not making ends meet at all. And she did a very loving thing, and she put me up for adoption. And her sister, my aunt and uncle, right, by birth, adopted me. So I didn't know any of this. I'm 5 years old. Next thing I know, I'm living in Long Beach, California, and moved from where we were living in Hollywood. Well, beautiful thing. My adopted, parents were amazing. We used to go camping. My dad was a highly decorated military officer. He was in the Army. He was in the National Guard. He was an officer. And then when I was 11, everything changed. In fact, it was the first day of summer in 1964. And my mom came and got me and said, David, come into the kitchen. We need to talk to you. Well, I thought they were going to tell us where we were going camping. We had a little camper that we would go, and we used to go to Yosemite and Big Bear and Lake Arrowhead and, all over Southern California, Northern California. And my mom kind of looks at me. I sat at the kitchen table. She puts her hand on my hand, and with tears in her eyes, she said, David, what we need to tell you is we're not your parents. Well, okay. Well, what does that mean? I mean, how do you even process that at 11 years old? And then she went on to tell me, and she said, your Aunt Dean, you call Aunt Dean, she's actually your biological mother. And I remember thinking, I don't even like her, right? It was like, and here's why. She was always touching me. Now, she wasn't touching me in an inappropriate way, but she always wanted to be next to me and hug me and all this. Well, now I get it, right? I'm her son. So no wonder she wanted to be around me and, in her defense. And so shortly after that, when they adopted me at 5, they had both sworn off alcohol. Well, like within a week of them telling me that, they both started drinking again. Now, we had just come out of the Bay of Pigs, right? Kennedy had just been assassinated in November of 63. We had all the Cuba crisis. We had the whole meltdown of, nuclear war, and all that was all going on. And my dad was working in the Pentagon. So he had a lot of information. And again, I was obviously pretty stressed out. Now, I'm not making excuses for his alcoholism or him starting to drink. I'm just saying I think a lot of things stacked up. And once they told me that they weren't my parents, that was like the kicker. Well, I watched these two beautiful human beings turn into people that it's almost indescribable. My dad was much worse than my mom, I will also say. And so one day they took off and went to the store. Well, back in those days, you could do that. In the 60s, you did what you want. If your kids were home, you could call the neighbor across the street and say, hey, Joanne, hey, Bob and I are going to the grocery store. David's home. If he needs anything, can he just come on, knock on your door? Yeah, of course. They did that, right? So they left. Well, when they left, I knew where the booze was. I was watching them drink it and hide it. Or I don't know if they were really hiding it, but they were putting it in a cabinet out of sight. And so as soon as they left, I wanted to know, because I'm like, okay, what is going on? How is it these two amazing people turned into these two argumentative, screaming, yelling people, just by drinking this stuff? So I went and I grabbed it. It was a half gallon. It was brandy. And I took a coffee cup and I filled it up about halfway. And I remember smelling it. It smelled awful. And for some reason, I just downed it. A half coffee cup at 11 years old. I never had a chance. I literally never had a chance. I believe that I was an alcoholic right on the spot, because I started thinking and acting alcoholically at that young age. I wanted more. I mean, it was like pouring rocket fuel in me. I just went nuts.
Yes.
And, you start hiding it, and then, you're stealing it, and one thing leads to another. And then you're getting into junior high school. And as you go into high school, I started hanging around with the wrong crowd. I started doing drugs in my early teens, and it just escalates, right? It doesn't stop, the momentum of that. And I got married, 3 times. All of them, except for one of them, pretty much partied like I did, or at least somewhat close to it. And then I got to June 8th of 1988. And when I woke up that morning, Alison, I said, that's it. I'm done. I'm out. this is going to stop today. I couldn't take the emotional and physical and spiritual pain anymore. I was physically just excruciatingly. It's so painful. And so my first thought was, well, this will be easy. I'm living in the basement. I'm married to a woman. She's got 3 kids. They're my stepkids. They're all living upstairs. Oh, they're staying away from me. And so I said, well, here's what's going to happen. The pain's stopping today. So the easiest way to do this is put a bullet in your head. And I really wrestled with that, because as I'm ready to actually do this, I literally put the pistol in my mouth twice that morning. I remember thinking, dude, you can't do that. And the reason you can't do that, those 3 kids that you love upstairs, your stepkids, they're the ones that are going to suffer. You'll be gone, and they'll have to pay for that for the rest of their life. So you got to come up with another way. And so the next thing I remember, I had this thought, well, call Alcoholics Anonymous. Well, the funny thing about that is I didn't know who AA was. I had no idea. I had no references for it. Never been to a meeting. Didn't know anybody that was in AA, and yet there was the thought in my head to call Alcoholics Anonymous. And I did. And they sent a man to come pick me up. In fact, the lady that answered the phone literally saved my life. I affectionately refer to her as Madge. And the reason is because she talked like this. Right? She probably smoked 2 packs of Pall Mall non-filters a day. And she was kicking my butt, Alison. She was like, are you serious? Are you sure you want to get sober? Because she was really the gatekeeper. She was the one that made a decision where she would call somebody to come pick you up.
Yes.
And apparently I must have given her enough information, because that's what she did.
Yes.
She sent a guy to come get me, and he took me to a men's group in Fairfax, Virginia. And I went to 4 meetings on my first day.
May I ask you, may I
Sure.
interrupt you for a minute? And I'm going to tell you why.
Sure, absolutely.
The reason that I'm interrupting you is because you said something that's really, really important. And I just want to magnify or highlight it.
Sure.
When you described being in the basement and putting a gun in your mouth, you're not the first person who I've had on this podcast who've said that. And my, unfortunately, I might cry, but I know why you're on the show, but because I believe, that God, there's no coincidences, right? So my husband did that same thing, but unfortunately he died. So,
Sorry.
no, it's okay. And, I'm going to cry on my podcast, but I've done that before, but it's just, I don't know why I didn't know that about you until I just feel like these things get set up,
Right.
So I've had other people on who've shared that same thing, that they had a gun in their mouth, but something came to them, and I just for other people, because I know that people hear this. And I also have a lot of widows who listen to this whole network of widows. And I just would, if you could just for that moment, because I feel like when I hear that God intervened in that moment, and I've heard other people say, oh, I just looked up at the clock and I knew my child would come in, just all these different things that happen at that second. And if you could share that moment, because I know that people who listen also could be thought of that before. I've thought of it before. It seemed like the best solution, like to not be here anymore. And I think that I would love to be able to get someone or anyone, even if it's one person, if they even think that, how do you get to the next level, to get out?
It was a moment of compassion.
Yeah.
Because I all of a sudden stopped thinking about me. Yeah, the pain was excruciating. I was emotionally I hurt all over physically. It was so painful because I was addicted to alcohol, heroin, and cocaine. Oh. So it was unbelievable, that feeling. Mm-hmm. But again, the moment of compassion really came from like those 3 kids. You can't do that to them. Yes. Because if I pull the trigger, I kill myself. But you know what? We kill everybody around us. And that's the part that I think if we would just stop for a minute and think that through, how painful that's going to be for them. They don't deserve that. They're the ones that have got to live through it. Right. Yeah. Here comes the paramedics, and here comes the morgue, and, the PTSD and the last visual, and it's going to permeate through school. All the neighbors are going to know. I mean, geez, and they're going to have to live with that for the rest of their life. And no, that's just not right. It's not fair. figure out something else to do, find a reason to live.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so again, that's where that moment of, wow, call AA.
Yeah.
Okay, who's that? I mean, again, I don't,
Yeah.
as you know, it was divine intervention
Completely.
of
You
how
were
that,
rescued.
no doubt.
Yes.
Because at the end of the day, it all comes down to finding that purpose. Why? I think the two most important times of our life is the moment we're born and the moment we figure out why. I also like the idea that, humans have two lives. Well, and the second one starts when we realize we have only one. And so that was it. That's what did it.
Yeah.
And so I got to AA and there it was. And I went home and I didn't use that first day. They gave me a little, it's called the surrender chip, right? And so I went home and I went 24 hours without taking a drink. Well, the next morning my phone rings at 8:00. Oh, by the way, they gave me a book, Alcoholics Anonymous, and they signed it. Said, before you take your first drink, call one of us. And they put their phone numbers in it and their first name. And then they also gave me a Living Sober book, did the same thing. Well, the next morning at 8:00 in the morning, my phone rings. And it's John from AA. He knew where I lived. He got my phone number. And he's one of these AA, real cheery, uppity kind of guys. And he's like, hey, Dave, good morning. It's John from AA. And he goes, how you doing? I said, how the hell do you think I'm doing? I want to kill somebody. I may start with you, pal. He's like, yeah, I get it. He says, listen, man, I know where you live. I'm going to come pick you up, take you to breakfast, and I'm going to take you in an AA meeting.
Love it.
That was it. That's it.
Yep.
That's how it works.
Yep.
And I got it. I felt it. I felt, here's this perfect stranger. He doesn't know me. He doesn't know anything about me. He doesn't know how dangerous I am. And yet he's willing to come over here, pick me up and take me to breakfast and then take me to a meeting.
Yes.
And so it was like so magical that this perfect stranger cared enough to like, come get me. And so, I learned that AA will love me until I could learn to love myself.
Yes.
And so, then 2 days turned into a week turned into a month. And they gave me another little medallion, another chip. And then they gave me one at 2 months, 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, a year. And then I got that, that almighty Roman numeral number 1 on that chip. And that was June 8th, 1988. So, a few days ago on the 8th, I just picked up one for 35 years. Now, where things kind of got really interesting in my early sobriety is that I had insomnia. So I was up late all the time. My sleep patterns were all over the place. And there I'm up late one night, 3:00 in the morning, and there he is. Mr. Enthusiasm, Mr. Gunthy Ranker himself, Tony Robbins at 3:00 in the morning. He knows who we are. We're up there late at night, watching infomercials, and there he was. And, a young Tony Robbins, and he was selling personal power. It's a 30-day program. It cost $179, which I put on my American Express card. And he sent it to me. And he said 2 things that really got me. One, he said, we'll do more to avoid pain than we will to gain pleasure. I remember thinking, whoa, that's pretty profound. And here's what really got me. He said the 2 driving forces in our life is we're motivated out of inspiration or desperation.
Yeah.
And I went, I'm pretty desperate. So let's buy that program.
Yes.
And it came on little white things, Alison, called cassette tapes.
Yes.
Your audience is going, what's a cassette tape?
Yeah. What is that?
What is that little white thing, back there in the day? And I went through it, got the program, went through it, did what the man taught me to do, and it worked. I started working out. I started losing weight. I started my own business. It kind of blossomed my entrepreneurial spirit. And one of my buddies in AA was watching me. He's like, what's wrong with you? What are you doing? Why are you so motivated? And shit. I go, I don't know. I've been listening to this guy named Tony Robbins. He goes, hey man, I know who Tony Robbins is. And so I told him about the program. And I said, hey man, I'll let you borrow it if you promise to go through it. He goes, I swear to God, I'll do it. So I gave it to him. 7 years later, my phone rings. Guess who it is? My buddy Dan, who went through it. He goes, hey, Tony Robbins is coming to town. Did you know that? I go, didn't have a clue. He goes, come on, man. you got me into this. You got to go with me. I'm like, all right, well, when is it? I said, okay, I can make that work. He goes, great. You'll go? Yes, I'll call you back. Okay. Calls me back an hour later. Done. We pick up the tickets at will call. Here's what they told us to do. Number one, bring snacks. You're going to spend a lot of time in the room. What an understatement that was. He said, hydrate, drink a lot of water throughout this entire weekend, this 4-day event. You got to bring water. You got to drink a lot of water. Okay. What else? He said, bring a great attitude. I said, okay. How much was the ticket? He said, $700. You can pay me back. I went, $700? This is in 1995. What's that equate to today? $7,000? I don't know.
Yeah, maybe.
He said, oh, and be ready to play full out. I said, all right, Dan, don't worry. $700. I'll play full out, pal. Just getting ready to hang up the phone. He goes, oh, wait, I forgot to tell you the most important part. What's that? He goes, we're going to be doing a firewalk. I remember thinking, I'm not saying anything, but I'm thinking, oh, hell no. You're out of your mind.
Yes.
No, I'm not doing it. Now, but I'm not saying anything to Dan, right? I'm like, oh, yeah, sure, Dan. Yeah. Oh, yeah, sure. Sounds interesting. I hang up the phone. I go, nope. And you know what, Alison? I didn't even know what a firewalk was, but I was saying no. I was saying no to it. So fear had controlled my life throughout my, my career, if you will, in the drug and alcohol world, because you're scared of everything, right?
Yes.
And so that was no exception. So I'm not doing this firewalk. Well, here comes the day. It's time to go to the event. We get there. We get in our seat. 3,500 people. Tony takes the stage at 2:00 in the afternoon. Next thing I know, it's after midnight. Been in a room for 10 hours with Robbins, right? Talk about, you're gonna need snacks. What about a sleeping bag? Forgot to tell us that. Next thing I know, again, it's after midnight. All of a sudden, Tony goes, take your shoes off. And I'm like, oh, no. No, pal. I know where you're going with that. I'm not doing that. And then I'm looking around and everybody starts taking their shoes off. And I'm like, people, no, don't fall for it. No, don't, And so I'm like, okay, so now I've got a dilemma. Do I take my shoes off? Because if I don't, if I walk outside where he's going to take us for this firewalk, everybody's going to see I've got my shoes on. So they're going to know I'm a coward. And we can't have that. So I remember thinking, all right, well, just take your shoes off, get out there and you can fake it, and then just go hide in the back. Nobody's going to know. Yeah. Well, it gets worse because as Tony's got everybody going out there, he gets everybody to start chanting, right? So they're clapping. They're like, yes, yes, yeah. And there's 3,500 people doing this, right? So it's like, oh, gosh, you got to stop, people. Well, it gets worse because when you get out there, he's got African drummers. So now it's everybody's clapping and chanting, and it's dun, 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 dun. I mean, oh my, what a dog and pony show. I mean, it is insane. There's nothing like it, the intensity. Well, when you get out into this giant parking lot area where you're going to do the firewalk, over in the corner, he's got a giant fire built, and it's been burning all day. And the pit's probably 30 feet wide, and it's 70 feet long. And they've been stacking wood on it all day. Well, it just renders after hours, and you've got the big, giant, beautiful pile of coals. Well, to set that up logistically, what they do is they take wheelbarrows and they load coals in the wheelbarrows. And then they take a wheelbarrow and they pull it like in between 2 lanes of sod, of grass, which is a fire lane, which is, 3 feet wide, 18 feet long. And then they just take a flathead shovel and they sprinkle those coals on top of that grass, and that's what you walk on. Well, I'm having none of it. So I'm in the back. I'm hiding way in the back. Well, Tony knows that this is literally one of the most life-changing experiences anybody's going to go through. It's the paradigm shift is there. Everything's there. This is this ritual rite of passage has been around for hundreds of years, used by cultures all over the world. So Robbins knows he wants to get you through that experience because it'll change your life. So what's he do? Well, he knows people are hiding in the back. So what's he do? He trains people to come get you. right? So I'm hiding out in the back, all minding my own beeswax, and all of a sudden, here comes this guy, and he makes eye contact with me.
Yes.
And now he won't take his eyes off. So Robbins must train him. Listen, once you make eye contact, don't take your eyes off. So all of a sudden he's walking to me. He gets probably 20 feet from me. And he kind of looks at me really weird, like kind of bends down and looks into me. He's like, "Are you okay?" And, you know, we lie, right?
Yes.
We say, "Oh, yeah, I'm fine. Good. Yeah, we're all good here, pal. Just be on your way. Nothing to see here." And all of a sudden he says, "Oh, good." He says, "Hey, man, are you going to walk tonight?" And I'm like, "Absolutely not." And I said it that way, you know, with the tonality. He's like, "Get away from me, pal. I'm not doing this."
Yeah.
And he goes, "Hey, man, it's cool." He says, "No problem. We don't want you to do anything you don't want to do." And I thought, oh, cool. This guy's going to get me out of here. And all of a sudden, here's a stranger. I don't know who this guy is to this day. I don't know. I'd like to, because he changed my life. I certainly wouldn't be here with you, Alison, on your podcast right now if it wasn't for that guy.
Oh.
And the question he asked me was, "Wouldn't you at least like to watch?" Right? And I'm like,
Yes.
and I'm thinking, sure, yeah, that'll be fun. Let's watch these people burn their feet off. Yeah, let's do that. And he said, "Well, listen, man, you can't see anything from way back here." He's right. I got 3,500 people standing in front of me. I can't see anything. Now they've already started walking because I can hear them. People are still chanting, "Yes, yes," and the dun dun dun. The drums are going, and now people are celebrating. They're screaming and yelling. Almost there's a fine line between screaming because they're exhilarated or they're in pain.
Yeah.
But they're just screaming. And so I can hear all that. And he says, "Well, listen, man, just get in line, and eventually you'll get up close enough, you'll be able to see it." All right.
Oh my gosh.
Well, he's telling the truth, though. He is, in his defense, right? He's telling the truth because I can't. I'm 100 yards away. I can't see anything.
Yeah.
So I get in line. I'm kind of walking along, and and again, it's unlike anything you've ever experienced. It is intense. And all of a sudden, this guy comes up to me, and he whispers in my ear, and he said, "He knows when you're ready. When he says go, you go." And pew, this guy just disappeared into the night. I'm like, what was that? Who was that? What's going on? It's like, stop. Right? It's like, what is, you're going crazy because your brain, you got no references for any of this, right? You've never seen or witnessed anything like this in your life. And all of a sudden I'm walking along and all of a sudden I can't see in front of me, but I can see at an angle. And they're doing it, Alison. Every race, every creed, every color, every age, they are walking on fire. And now my brain's going, what in the hell? Why are they, metaphorically, you're like, why are they doing this? What's the reasoning?
Right.
Why would anybody do something like this? Right. And I'm just mesmerized. So it's like the car accident. You're not supposed to look at it, but you stare at it anyway. Right. Well, that's what I'm doing. I'm staring at watching these people, and I'm completely in a trance. I'm completely mesmerized, and I'm just staring. And I'm walking along, and all of a sudden, boom, guess where I am? I'm at the front of the line. And I look down, and there's it's that fire lane is 3 feet wide, 18 feet long. The coals on top are glowing bright red. There's a wheelbarrow there. It's full of coals. You can feel the heat coming off. The chanting's going on. The drums are going. People are screaming and yelling on both sides of me, when they're celebrating. And as I'm staring into the abyss, there's a trainer standing there. And all of a sudden the trainer goes, "Eyes up." I'm like, oh, geez, that's right. I'm in a room for 10 hours with Tony. Guess what he teaches you to do?
What?
Keep your eyes up, right? Don't stare at what you fear. Look to the celebration end. Focus on that.
Love that.
Now my eyes are up. He said, "Squeeze your fist and say yes." And I went, "Yes." And he went, "Stronger." And I went, "Yes." Well, he could tell I wasn't in a peak state.
Yeah.
I was leaving a lot on the table. Well, he screamed at me. And he said, "Stronger." And so I threw my hands in the air and screamed to the top of my lungs. And he goes, "Go, go, go."
You went.
I
You
took
did
off.
it. Yeah.
Well, here's the first thing I learned about Firewalk. When you take the first step, you'll take the second, third, fourth, and fifth.
You
absolutely
have to.
You're not going to stop. Well, Tony positions two people at the end, and they lock arms, and they stop you. Thank goodness, because I'd have walked all the way to Albuquerque at that point. And they're like, "Stop, wipe your feet and celebrate." And so I'm wiping my feet, and all of a sudden I look back, and the clothes are bright red, and I did it. I just walked on coals. They're 1,000 degrees, and I have no clue how I did it. And all of a sudden I realized, oh my gosh, I've burnt myself really, really bad. And I lift up my foot and I look at it, see how badly it's burnt? And it's dirty, but there's no burns.
It's not burnt.
It's my other foot. It's dirty, but there's no burns. So I just walked on coals that were 1,000 degrees. I didn't burn myself, and I didn't have a clue how I did it. None. But I did it, right? You ever done something really cool and you don't know how you did it, but you're like, yep, that's me. I did that. That was me. You're taking credit for it, right?
Yes.
But you don't know how you did
Try
it.
to keep my eyes up.
Yeah, keep my eyes up. Look at me.
Yes.
And I even had to be told to do that 1,000 times before I even kept my eyes up. Well, you're in the celebration end, and people are going nuts. They're jumping up and down. You can feel their energy. You can feel, their self-confidence, their self-worth, their self-belief about themselves transformed right on the spot, instantaneously. And we're all celebrating. And it's one of the most life-changing, paradigm shift experiences you can go through. It's that simple. And Tony knows that. That's why he brought it in. Tony's no idiot. He's done a pretty good job out there in the world of self-development, right? And so, but here's where it gets really interesting, was the next day.
Yes.
See, this is day one of a 4-day event. So now we're coming into day two. Now we're 3,500 of us standing in the foyer the next morning. To this day, I've never seen or witnessed anything like it in my life. Humanistically, people were communicating and hanging out with each other at such a high level.
Wow.
They were, they're laughing, they're crying, they're hugging, they're telling each other their stories. They're talking about the Firewalk. I mean, our frequency just went boom to the top. And I'm like, you've got to be kidding. This is magical. This is so beautiful. It's just gorgeous. Well, later in the event, I met one of Tony's trainers. Name's Ted Macy. Great guy. I love him to this day. Him and his wife, Mary. So I'm talking to him, and I said, man, this has got to be really cool that you get to come play in this environment. He goes, oh, dude, it's unlike anything you can imagine. And he says, as a matter of fact, you see all those people standing over there with those black shirts and the pink writing on them? I'm like, yeah. He goes, they're volunteers. You can become one. So when you get home, just call Robbins Research and tell them you want an application as a volunteer crew member. And they'll send it to you. Who knows? Maybe you'll get lucky and they'll choose you. I did it. They sent me the application. I sent it back. Like a month and a half later, I get this letter from the Anthony Robbins Company. It says, Dave Albin, congratulations. You've been selected to crew with the Anthony Robbins Companies in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. Well, the next thing I know, there I am. So when you fill out the application, Alison, they're asking you all these questions, like your background and all this, right? So I had a military background, had a security background. And I lived on a farm at the time. So I knew how to use tools and log splitters, and I had to operate equipment, stuff like that. So they put me on the security team to help take care of Tony's celebrities. And they put me on the fire building team outside all day, the day of the Firewalk, which I loved. Well, that was in 95. Well, in 96, they offered me a position as a subcontractor to help take care of Tony's celebrities.
Wow.
And then they put me on the fire team as the assistant captain. So as a volunteer, you have to pay your way, right? Airfare, hotel, food, all of it. Well, but as a subcontractor, they pay for all that, and they pay you a little salary. So instead of paying $2,000 or $3,000 to go be part of the environment, I was actually, they were paying for it. And and again, I made a couple $100. So I did that for a while. And then in 2003, we're at Date with Destiny in the Bahamas. There's no Firewalk there. I'm there in a security role. And I got called into the office. And that's when they offered for me to take over all of Tony's Firewalks globally as the fire captain. And though I originally said no because I homeschool my kids, they ended up saying, well, what if we pay to have your kids travel with us? Would that make a difference? Right? So now my family is on the road with me and their dad at Tony Robbins. That was in 03. Well, in 05, we go to London to the Excel Center out in the Docklands. And we set a world record. We firewalked the biggest firewalk in our planet's history. We firewalked 12,000 300 people. Now I want to disclose something. I say it's a world record. Guinness Book was not there to document it. And we don't care. There's never been a firewalk anywhere close to that, to my knowledge, other than maybe, 10,000, which was another Tony Robbins seminar, right?
Yes.
So my firewalks were anywhere between $6,000 to $12,000, 1,000 people. So that was in 2005. Well, 2014, I'm driving down the road and my phone rings. And it's a company called, maybe you've heard of them, Google. And they're like, are you the Dave Albin that does the Firewalk for Tony Robbins? Yeah, what can I do for you? Well, if you're not under any contractual obligation or non-compete, we'd like to talk to you about hiring you. I went, okay, tell me more. When's the date? Okay, I'm available. And they told me the time, which was going to be like 3:00 in the afternoon. I said, can't do a Firewalk at 3:00 in the afternoon. Got to do it at night. I got to be able to see the coals. I got to see the redness. There's a safety issue. Can't do it during the day. However, we could do a glass walk. Like glass walk. Ooh, tell us about that. So yeah, it's where I teach you how to walk on broken glass. And they said, cool, we'll do that. In fact, could we, as we're introducing you, could we play that song by Annie Lennox, Walking on Broken Glass? I'm like, you sure can.
That's good. Yes.
Right. And then they said, and by the way, as we bring you out on stage, can we, that scene in Die Hard where Bruce Willis has to run across the broken glass and his feet are all bloody? Can we show that? Absolutely. You're my kind of people. Well, when I got to Google, I had a conversation with a couple of the executives. And one of them, she told me straight up, she goes, I don't know if you know this or not, but there's a huge marketplace for you to create these kind of corporate team building experiences because you're the guy. So, we're not telling you what to do, but you may want to consider starting your own organization and offering this to corporate America because this is life-changing stuff. Yeah. This is a little bit more than taking your team golfing or taking your team on a scavenger hunt. Or getting them to play blackjack, or he goes, because we know, right? Most people in the personal development industry know what doesn't challenge you doesn't change you. Yes. Navy SEALs don't become Navy SEALs by sitting their butt in a seat, listening to somebody talk on stage. You got to engage. Oh. Mm-hmm. And so that's what the Firewalk does, obviously. So I took that to heart, started my own company in 2014, did Google, did them again the following year. Next thing I know, Alison, I'm at NASA. I'm at Notre Dame. I'm at Virginia Tech, Remax, Heineken, Chick-fil-A, YMCA, all over the spectrum, Fortune 100 companies and high schools where I can speak on career and college day to the students. If you want to be an entrepreneur, come to room so-and-so and we can talk about that. Wow. So, the spectrum was so wide, right?
Yes.
And that was
Wayne
it.
Dyer.
And Wayne Dyer.
Oh my God. You did it for him?
I facilitated at one of his events, but we actually didn't do the Firewalk, but I did 2 of his events with him and helped him with some other things.
Love him.
T. Harv Eker.
I love him too. Right? Yes.
Yeah, T. Harv did, wrote the Millionaire Mindset.
Yes.
The book. And T. Harv did them completely different, where Robbins was a very high energy, rah, boom, boom, drums, all that. T. Harv was completely the opposite. Really? Very ceremonial, very rite of passage. We did them on Indian reservations. Wow. And we had Indians come and bless, so they would sage the area and they would dance and they would chant and they would do their ceremonial procedure on that. And then we did the Firewalk there. And it was, again, completely different.
I have to ask you something about it.
Sure.
Because that I have never done a Firewalk, and I would be you in the back of the line also. So how come no one gets burned? And I really want to understand that.
I get asked.
Is it supernatural?
And here's my answer. I don't have a clue.
I love it.
I don't know. Yes. I've got my own hallucination. Yeah. All I know is I've walked hundreds of thousands of people and they don't get burned. I think it's number one, you have to trust the process. Number one. Number two, you have to give yourself to the fire. You have to trust. I say, it's like, guys, what, it's kind of like the relationship with a woman. When does she want your attention? All the time. Right. So does the fire. So when you get out there, you better give the fire your attention.
Interesting.
So, and when you're in a peak state, like a professional athlete, if you will, it's they get ready to go into the game, right? They don't just kind of like MMA fighters don't kind of walk out there going, hey man, yeah, okay, I'm going to go kick his butt now. Okay, here we go. No, it doesn't work like that. High energy. And so when you're in higher energy like that, it creates fight or flight. You've got all the chemicals firing off in your your body knows what to do to protect itself.
True.
Now, can you get a burn? Well, here's the answer. The coals are 1,000 degrees. I'm sure anybody can figure that out. I mean, if I gotten blisters before, absolutely. But I've walked hundreds and hundreds of times. Yeah. And we do advanced firewalking too. This is, most of my firewalks, 99% of my firewalks are all beginner. Mm-hmm. And so there's a different way to do it when you do it that way. My job.
Let's say somebody's afraid and they're not fully given in. So they're not in that high peak state, but then they start running on it.
Well,
they're like hesitating or whatever. Do you take them off? Like, what do you
do? The lane's only 15 to 18 feet long.
Okay.
If they have to step off, they'll step off.
Okay.
But that's not what I taught them when they were in the room.
Yeah. Right.
So there's your lesson. Where else does not paying attention show up in your life?
Cool. Yeah.
Right. So the lesson is always there. The fire always teaches the lesson. The fire will not disappoint ever.
Yeah.
Doesn't happen. And that's the beauty. So that's their lesson. That's what they had to learn in that moment. Where people are the most challenged with a firewalk? The second or the third time they do it.
Really?
Sure. Because they go, I've done this before.
Oh.
Look at me. I'm hot stuff. I've done it before. So I don't have to do it. You want to bet? Try that. Because a lot of people if they get a little burn, a little blister on their foot, it's the second time they've done it. Which is, I find fascinating.
Interesting. Yeah.
Very. So,
because somehow they feel like they've conquered it instead of giving like a reverence for it. Is that it?
Yeah, I've conquered it. Yeah, really? Yeah. You're going to conquer fire? Tell me. Yeah, let's tell us how that works out for you.
Do you think it helps? Like you were describing, a lifetime of fear, which I completely relate to, like it being like the fabric of your being, without it, who would I be? So I just wonder, like, does that really help? Like I shouldn't say really. I mean, does that take away a lot of the fears or at least point to them?
Well, I think if most of us will go back and look at things that we feared, most of it never happened.
Yep.
We just manufactured it in our head. We make it up. So you have to decide the meaning you're going to get fear. What's it mean to you?
Yes.
Does it mean forget everything and run? Or does it mean face everything and rise?
Right. Mm-hmm.
You know what we say in AA? False images appearing real.
Yep.
So the bottom line is that everything that happens in our life, we create a story.
Mm-hmm.
Everything.
Yep.
So we either embellish it or make it more or less than it really is. And we have the power to change it. I say all the time, you want to change your life, change your story.
Yes.
Stop telling yourself stuff that's not true. I don't, because people make stuff up. Because I ask a lot of times, I ask my audience, so why don't people get what they want in life? And they'll say all kinds of stuff. I don't have the time. I don't have the money. I don't have the education. Don't have the background. Don't have the resources. Don't have this. Don't have that. Okay. Guess what? If that's what you're going to tell yourself, then you're right.
Yep.
Henry Ford said it.
Mm-hmm.
If you think you can or you think you can't, you're right.
Uh-huh. Yep.
I put a picture 100%. Of the guy on the screen behind me when I take the stage, and it's a man by the name of Eric Weinmeier. And the picture of him is pretty clear. He's standing on the top of Mount Everest, and he's standing at a really unusual angle, and he looks like there's something physically wrong with him, like he's got a bad back, or he's humped over, or his legs longer than the other. And I'll ask the audience, hey, who here can tell me where Eric's standing? Mount Everest. That's correct. Who here can physically tell me what's wrong with him? One leg's longer than the other. Not exactly. Let me tell you something else about Eric. He's climbed the 7 highest mountains on 7 continents. Put him in a kayak, he can tear it up, a river. He just did the gorge in the Grand Canyon. Put him on a mountain bike. This guy's a bad dude, man. He can tear it up. But here's what I want you to know about Eric. He's blind.
I love that. Yes.
So I don't want to hear it.
Yep.
I don't care what your excuse is, nonsense.
Yep.
If a man can climb the 7 highest mountains on this planet and he can do it blind, then I don't want to hear about your BS excuse. And I'm telling you this and demonstrating this to you to screw with your head for the rest of your life.
Yes. Yes.
Because the whole idea behind the Firewalk is, okay, if I can walk on fire and be successful at it and not burn and hurt myself, what else can I do?
I love it.
What other things have I told myself that's not true? So fear's a liar. Let's call it what it is.
Yes.
Now it's also there. Fear's there to help you, don't do something stupid. It's there to help keep you alive.
Yes.
But the bottom line is, let fear be your guide. Just don't let it become your jailer.
Yes.
And I think that's where a lot of people get to.
100%.
100%. Because again, playing small doesn't serve anybody. It certainly doesn't serve you. It doesn't serve me. I was on a very destructive path. And then I was given a gift. All right, Dave, we're not done with you yet. We're going to put you in AA, clean you up a little bit. And we're going to show you how to do something that can radically change people's life on such a huge scale. And like that's what people do. They hire me, they come in and go, all right, Dave, our company's doing really great. We are kicking butt right now, but you know what we want to do? We want to take it to the next level.
Yes.
Or maybe they're doing really bad. Maybe it's down. Maybe COVID's destroying them. All this mask wearing, vaccine taking political crap. That's not how you build a business.
No.
Money doesn't care what you think about whether you should wear or not wear a mask. Money doesn't care about a vaccine. Money doesn't care about your political status. And so if those things interfere and it creates dissension amongst the production part of the team and it all drops, guess what? As a CEO, it's your job to fix it. Because if you don't fix it, you've got to be accountable to your shareholders or to your company or whoever.
Right.
So how do you fix it? Let the fire do it. Fire will do it every time.
I love that.
It's guaranteed. It's not like, oh, hey, Dave, does it work sometimes? No, it works all the time, every time, period.
So when you say it fixes it, like, could you explain what that is? I know
sure.
We're going to have to go in a minute, but I have to hear this. I'm so interested.
Well, the bottom line is that it's just like the second day of the event that I went to, and I was standing in the room in the foyer getting ready to go into the venue. All those people were getting along. It was magnificent. And so the fire fixed it. It put us all on the same level. It's almost like a near-death experience that you would go through with somebody.
Yes.
Because you do something so extraordinary that, boom, there you are.
It's like in the big book where it says that from to the captain's table. What is it? From the whatever, the guy who's the poor man on the ship to the captain's table, we all share a common peril.
Yeah, because without each other, the ship goes down, we all drown.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's like, so we're all gonna die and burn if we don't connect quickly.
Yeah. Well, like you say, I read the book. Nobody gets out alive. So you might want to, live large. You only got one. You got one shot at this. The chances of being born were 1 in 400 trillion anyway, and so grab a hold. I believe, Alison, if you help enough people get what they want in life, you'll always get what you want in life.
It is so true. And I know that we have to go because you're a very, very popular man and everybody wants to talk to you. But I just want to thank you so much. I could have asked you a gazillion questions, but you just answered them. I feel like your wisdom is incredible. And I want to thank you for surrendering to your higher power and doing all that you do. Well, so is there where would people find you?
I'll come back.
Will you come back?
Oh, of course. Absolutely.
I didn't want to ask, but if you come back, I want to talk to you about fear and just like,
I'll be happy to.
All right. Thank you. Is there where would people find you?
Just go to our website.
Yeah. And you know what? I have it all in the show notes anyhow.
Yeah, it's www.firewalkadventures with an S, firewalkadventures, one word.com. It's all there. My
Perfect.
academy coming up in October is where you can come and I teach you all this stuff. And you can go back, and if you're a coach or a trainer, or you work for a large corporation and they want to send somebody, that kind of thing. I take 9 people at a time. We keep it very small, very intimate. It's coming up October 3rd through the 7th. That's on the website. In fact, I'll give you a code, and the code is, if you use the code 6828, I'll give any of your viewers a special discount if they want to come to the academy. I think we have 4 spots left.
That is awesome. Thank you so much.
My
It
pleasure.
is such a pleasure to know you.
Thanks, Allison. We'll
All
see you
right.
next time.
Take care.
You
Bye-bye.
too. Bye-bye.